Francesco Morosini was one of the more interesting doges in Venetian history for a lot of the wrong reasons. Francesco Morosini was a career military man in the late Venetian Empire. And, as my deputy executive producer reminds me, he was a bit of a cat person. In fact, you might say that is the common thread in his career before he became Doge. Oh my. Well, if you feel that way, you should get off my lap, sweetheart. I see. Anyway, the common thread in Doge Francesco Morosini's career was a crippling, let's call it, love of all things related to felines. He swept into office as Doge in 1688 as a war hero. And he made his bones, as you might say, fighting against the Ottomans and the Greeks. The Ottomans, for example, had laid siege to Candia in Greece, and Morosini, for the majority of the multiple decades-long siege, had been in charge of the Venetian garrison. Morosini had two little quirks. He liked to dress all in red, either for sartorial reasons or to prevent it being obvious when he'd been wounded, and that he carried his cat with him into battle on the seas and on the land. He was never seen without his cat, who I don't think actually is named in the sources. It would be like saying, yes, I survived Stalingrad with the help of Mr. Whiskers. That is Francesco Morosini's whole oeuvre, if we can put it there. The year before he was elected Doge, he actually gets a commendation for blowing up, or literally blowing the roof off of, the Parthenon. This world-famous religious artifact that is a classical example of craftsmanship and proportion, and during a siege, Francesco Morosini finds out that the defenders are storing their powder in a specific corner of the Parthenon and directs fire to there. It blows the roof off, and Francesco Morosini, instead of being sad that the world has lost a marvelous bit of art, is just very happy because that means that he gets to loot more. Even with his distinguished military record, Francesco Morosini realizes that the Ottoman victory at Candia is sort of against the trends of history. The Ottoman Empire is in retreat, and now, as the supreme military authority and the head, nominally, of the Venetian state, he intends to take advantage of the Ottoman tide going out. He is a very war-happy Doge. He tries to recapture the glory of his pre-Doge days by going on several military expeditions. The apple of his eye is a place called Negroponte. Morosini is a less successful military leader as Doge than he was as Admiral, and it shows. And the reason we're focusing on Morosini for this little bit is that Francesco is not that temperamentally dissimilar to Andrea Gritti. Both men are authoritative, authoritarian, quick-tempered, and lust heavily after personal glory. These are the sort of people that, in the first half of Venetian history, would absolutely try to do what the Antinori, or Obliero, Orsioli rather, would try to do and make a power grab. Set themselves up as emperor, or king, or dictator, or start a dynasty. Francesco Morosini is that type of guy, but the hardened system of Venetian government and culture and oligarchy prevent that. He couldn't make himself king if he wanted to. The Venetian system is working as intended. Francesco Morosini, of course, is buried with his cat in the year 1694. The cat is mummified in the Egyptian style, all the rage those days. And this coincides with 6 years later, the year 1700, map of the Venetian Empire at its fullest extent behind me. A more cynical person than me might say that there's nowhere to go but down from here for the Venetian Republic.